Yeah, the cool part about tattoos is like the bikes. You jump on, and you're like, oh, that's I remember this. What I do is I start off small just to get you used to it. At any point you need me to stop or take a break, just let me know, and we'll take a few minutes. All right. Go ahead and start with a little dot for you. Not too bad.
No, I got nerve damage in that arm, so I don't really feel things that well anyway.
Hey, that's perfect, man. Shit. You already see the dynamic of how much blacker it is already, right?
I'm shocked. I'm still shocked on the tattoo gun.
Yeah.
That shows you how long it's been.
Yeah. I mean, shit, there's plenty of shops where they still don't even use these. But there's a lot of different things that I try to make sure that we use that is like the newer stuff, just to make sure that we're like staying up with times and we're using the best that we could possibly give you guys, you know? So you were telling me about the other shops that you've seen around here and that you've driven by, and so you've been here for a while, right?
I've lived in this area for 6 years.
Oh shit. Okay, so you're
I was born and raised in New York, so I was like 11, 12, and then I spent the rest of my time in Pinellas County.
What brought you here? Work.
Yeah, I got a job offer to come down here, and I particularly never came down here a lot before. Had been down here before though, and seen it, and I was wanting to move.
Just kind of solidified it.
It wasn't too far from like my parents and sisters and nephews. They all live up, an hour and 20 minutes away.
Oh, okay, nice. Made it kind of dummy proof for you then.
Yeah, I'm like the outcast of the family. I'm the one that's far. They're all within miles of each other, and we gotta drive down to Joey's house. It's like a big ordeal, even though it's not that far. I don't think. And I spent 5 years in Kansas City after high school and college.
Oh, okay, college shit.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been in the Midwest, but it's a completely different world up there compared to here.
Yeah, definitely never been.
People are different. Weather's crazy.
They just not as friendly, or what?
No, they're friendlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's interesting because I remember before I moved to Florida, I was always told about the Southern hospitality. And I moved here, and the Southern hospitality doesn't exist in Florida. Well, I mean, it does for some areas, but not really. Like
Florida's really
it's a melting pot.
Yeah, a mixture of Northerners more than anything.
Yeah.
You rarely find people that are born and raised here,
Right. So tell me a little bit about you, my man. How many kids you got?
Oh, we got 7 kids total.
7?
Yeah.
So you guys have a pre-made football team.
Pretty much, yeah. We got them like waves, so we have like the older wave and then the little ones.
So the older ones are available to help with the younger ones then, right?
Some. One's 20, the oldest is 24, and he's in the Army, so he's not around here. He's in Oklahoma. And then 18-year-old stepdaughter, she just moved out of the house. Well, she'll be 19, I guess, next month, but, she was ready to be an adult, and so that was a little bit of hard times for me and my wife because, it was like more for me. Because when we met, the 24-year-old, he just turned 18 and he was already out of the house. So I didn't experience that living child ready to spread their wings or whatever.
Oh.
Then we have a 17-year-old son in the house with us, a 15-year-old son, 9-year-old daughter, 8-year-old son, and 5-year-old daughter. That's a Brady Bunch, kind of without the maid.
So tattoo time is quiet time for you, man.
Yeah, anytime I get out the house, really.
Who wants to go get milk? Me?
Yeah, usually Wednesday through Saturday, my wife works at night, so I'm home with the kids by myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they outnumber me, and I'm a pushover, really. My wife's the mean one. That's what I always say.
Yeah, you kind of have to be a pushover, though, with that many kids, right? Because
they
you don't want
outnumber
to battle with fucking 5, 6 kids. Shit.
Yeah, so when we met, I had 2 kids of my own. Like I said earlier, I was a single dad. and she had she had 3 kids, and then
So single dad is like you took care of them on your own type deal.
yeah, on my own. Mom wasn't involved. Kind
Gotcha.
of split after or during the divorce took like 2 years, and we were split up the whole time, and I had the kids, and she didn't really help much, and actually, to be honest, just started getting child support from her like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago
Congratulations.
for the first time in 7 years. So.
Wow. Did you frame the first check or?
I was in shock, to be honest with you. They sent me like the little child support debit card as it gets loaded on, and I would check that thing periodically throughout the months and years, and
Just
always heard a zero balance.
Right.
And then one day I checked it, and I was like, "Whoa, what's this?"
Do you think it was more of a state ordered thing, or do you think that it was just her?
It was state ordered because I didn't like consistently, but every once in a while I would kind of try to push the issue, like, hey, why I ain't getting the child support?
Right.
And she moved out of state. She lives in Tennessee now, and apparently they take it a little bit more serious in Tennessee when you don't pay your obligations to child support. So
that's excellent. So
down here they kind of give you a suspended license, and rarely do you go to jail for it.
Right.
You have a warrant, like from a judge for whatever reason. Up there, they don't do the whole suspension; they just put you in jail for it. So,
wow,
kind of picked the wrong state to go to, I guess. So I think that kind of maybe helped when it came to pushing her to do it, because I don't think she'd want to be in jail.
Right. Did she have contact?
No. I mean, by her choice, I don't not allow it. She just doesn't make the effort. I don't know.
Right.
I think it's a drugs problem.
Yeah.
Should not care, maybe.
I mean, in reality, once you get to that point, I'd imagine it's a little bit easier to just not think about the reality of life, I guess.
Exactly. And it hurt for a while for like the kids' sake, not so much mine, and them not having a mom around.
For sure.
But, like my wife now is like really the only mother figure they know because they were little, and she's really good to them, and I couldn't ask for a better wife, and everything worked out good.
That's awesome, man.
It was a period of time in my life during that divorce, and I had the kids freshly by myself, and I wasn't making a lot of money, and it was paycheck to paycheck, and I had to pay this babysitter and that babysitter, and it was tough times for me, and it was times I got depressed, and I think about it now, like if I would have kept going down that route, I probably wouldn't have been much of a dad for them either, because I was just in my own head, my own feelings. And I hated women, and I didn't want to get married again. I didn't never want to have another kid, and
because of like how the first one.
Yeah,
right.
Just that fear of you have another kid, and then I'm not the type of dad to just walk away if there's issues like with the relationship between me and the mother. I want to be in those kids' life, so I'll fight for them just like I did them, and then I'm over here thinking like, if I did that, and things didn't work out, would I be able to handle 3 kids by myself? So it was just a lot of fear, and I kind of hated women just due to her. Not necessarily hated women, but didn't want to get married again.
For sure.
In my head, I was like, I'll never get married again, but I did, and we kind of met like not really looking for it, and it's been great. So
that's when they say you find exactly what you're looking for, right? It's when you're not looking.
And there's times my wife will say, hey, if we met when we were younger, you think we'd still be together? And I said, no, probably not. And she's like, why do you say that? I said, well, we met at the right time for the right reasons.
For sure.
Like we both had a little bit of experience behind us and gone through a little past and knew what we wanted, and
you're able to grow in the correct way, right? Man, that's heavy. I'm like,
and joining a family, a blended family, it's hard at times, but it's also an amazing thing. It's like they all gained brothers and sisters, and I gained kids, she gained kids in our life, and I love them just like I do my own kids.
Are the kids all pretty close?
Yeah.
For the most part.
I mean, now that the older ones are starting to get to that point where they're having their own life, the younger ones are kind of like, where's Giovanna? Where's she? but they were close to them, and I get it, you know, like I was that age once. You don't want to be around little kids all the time, but the little kids, they're best friends, but also worst enemies at the same time. Always arguing, but then they'll lie for each other, you know, so the other one don't get in trouble. And
we were talking a little bit earlier outside before we got started on your tattoo. You were telling me about one of your daughters.
yeah, my 9-year-old daughter, well, she'll be 10 in August. She pretty much since she's a baby, since she could walk and talk and all that, she's just been a handful. And you know, I know all kids are handfuls, but she's just, you know, the next level, and she doesn't listen, and she's always putting on a show in public and at restaurants. And you know, like my parents could never watch her because she was just too much for them because they're older. And you know, and it was she's always been lack of words the problem. Whenever, like, if I wanted to go out of town for a weekend or something, I needed babysitters. She was the hardest one to find a babysitter for, and her mom wasn't around to help. And I just thought, you know, maybe she's showing out because of the issues me and her mom had, and being without a mom for a while. And you know, I'm as experienced as a dad as they are old, you know. So
right.
And then
I like that.
you know, before they were born, I didn't have any kids. I had nephews and nieces, but I mean, it's different. I was just there.
For sure.
You know, they were more like my friends than anything. And I kind of knew there might have been a little bit, maybe some kind of a chemical imbalance going on mentally, or, you know, I mentioned outside that her mother her mother was taking pills while she was pregnant with her and keeping it from me. And, you know, the whole time she was pregnant, I had no clue. And I didn't go to doctor's appointments, and she would always be like, oh, you don't need to miss work. It's just a checkup. Like, you experienced it with your son, you know. And I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Why lose money just to go there and then tell you everything's normal, you know?
Right.
But it was really because she was going to go there and talk, you know, about prescriptions with the doctor, refills, whatever, and she didn't want me to know.
Wow.
So even when we were at the hospital, you know, the nurses, the doctors, they can't really say nothing, even on the father of the baby, because of that HIPAA law.
Right.
So, like, you know, afterwards, she's on, like, pain medication, you know, the IV, and they had her, like, timed. So there was a point where she was like, oh, I need, you know, it's hurting, I'm hurting, I want, you know, want more. So I went to go get the nurse, and she's like, oh, she has 15 more minutes. And I'm like, what's 15 minutes? You know, just do it. She's in pain.
Oh,
I'm kind of like arguing with the lady,
right.
But it's really because they had a protocol, and I didn't know about it.
And they couldn't give her more until then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then, you know, my daughter wasn't born, like, withdrawing, addicted to drugs or anything, but in her umbilical cord blood, she tested positive for opiates.
Oh, shit.
So DCF got involved,
right.
And that's how I found out.
Wow.
DCF came to the house, and she had a prescription, so when she gave him a urine sample and failed for that, she had a prescription, so they couldn't do nothing about it. Well, I was at work when that went down, and I come home, and she tells me about it, and I'm like, DCF, you know, what are they doing here? Who called them? Blah, 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 blah. And then my mind's racing, you know, like, who could have done it? I'm wanting to call people and bitch them out. And, you know, then the DCF lady kept calling me saying, hey, I want to close this case, but I need to speak to you about something. And I'd be like, speak to me. I can't do it over the phone, you know. I have to make sure it's you. It's, you know, private information, blah, 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 blah. So then after about a week, I was able to set time aside to go see her. And that was when she told me, you know, you don't know the whole story, and this is what's going on. And, you know, instantly I got upset about it. And, of course, she said, don't get upset about it. Don't go arguing. It's not good for the kids. And I'm like, well, I mean, I need to address it. Like, she could have potentially killed my unborn daughter, let alone give her a lifetime, you know, mental disease or whatever.
Right.
You know, when she was born, she was a baby. She was a normal baby. But, you know, it's like until 7 years old that your brain fully develops. And they said, you know, right now she has no kind of defects or problems, but in the future it could cause something, you know.
So you don't really know until that
So
time happens.
that was kind of like the beginning of the end of our relationship, because I just could never get past that, and there was always an argument, and we separated, and then, you know, the struggles I went through with my daughter when I was a single dad, I didn't know no better, so I thought they were normal. You know, like people used to be like, "Oh man, she got really bad behavioral problems," and I'd be like, "No, she's just a 3-year-old." You know, like, what do you mean?
For sure.
And I was used to it because I was around it every day.
Right.
You know, and then as time went on, I met my current wife, and you know, she was just like, we should ask a doctor to give us a referral to see if there's something else going on. And I said I was against it for the first probably 2 years, because I knew they're gonna give her medication and she's gonna be comatose, and that's gonna be their answer. So I have a nephew that has ADHD, OCD. He's 28 years old now, but when he was about 5, 6, they diagnosed him with that, and they gave him Adderall and Ritalin, and I mean, I remember times we'd be playing basketball. I'd take my nephews to go play basketball, and he'd be fine playing basketball, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he'd be like, "Oh my God, Uncle Joey, what time is it?" I'd be like, "It's 12:30. Why?" He'd be like, "I was supposed to take my medication. You know, I was supposed to do my medication 20 minutes ago," and then that's all he would be thinking about, talking about,
Just
freaking out about it.
Right.
So we basically had to stop playing basketball so I could take him home and he could take his medication. And then as he got older, I mean, even till this day, he still suffers with it. And now that he's an adult, he doesn't really take his medication anymore. He doesn't like the way it makes him feel. And so I just kind of related to that when it came to my daughter. Like, I don't want her to be dependent on anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And since she's been on the medication, and this is fairly new, this is only about maybe 2 months she's been on it, and I know it takes time for them to really start working correctly.
Mm-hmm.
She's been a lot calmer, and
Wow.
so it's almost like, man, like that was the answer the whole time, and I should, you know, for her sake, 'cause I think about when she's older, like, is this something she's going to suffer with her whole life, and is it going to cause problems in her adulthood, like being a mother or, you know, marriage, and it sucks because it's not her fault. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure, and like that, you know, they told me they can't guarantee that it was the drug use during pregnancy that did it, but most likely it is. So, you know, it's just, in a way, it kind of makes me hate her mother. You know? Like,
For sure.
a baby that wasn't even born yet, now they have to suffer because of your selfish decision. And then she takes one, I think it's called Clotidine, and it like calms her mood down, but because it's fresh, it makes her sleepy really quick. And the doctor says in order for it to really start working and kicking in and her getting used to it to where she doesn't get tired, you need to try to let her fight through the sleepiness, and don't let her go to sleep.
Oh, wow.
So that's really the hardest part. I mean, we give her one of those in the morning and then at night. At nighttime, she said if she gets tired, let her fall asleep, whatever.
Right.
You know, it's to calm her down when we get ready for bed. But like today, we gave her one at like 11. We went out to lunch, and while we're at the restaurant, you could see she was real sleepy. And so, you know, it sucks, but she's been a lot calmer.
Point, once her body starts learning to regulate it and the chemicals start like getting more in tune, I imagine that it'll be easier for her to process and deal with, for sure.
Yeah, she does little things like you were saying outside, like she has little ticks here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're in bunk beds, and she's on the top bunk, and she was laying in her bed one night, and I guess she couldn't sleep, so she started picking at the wall. And now it's like a big, like, quarter size of the paint's missing, and then she was playing with the blinds, and one of the blinds are broken. Like, she just kind of like has these little, like, have to touch and stuff, and she knows she shouldn't be doing it. Like, she's old enough and comprehends that it's wrong what she's doing, but she just, I don't know, feels like she has to, I guess.
How does she do as far as like schoolwork and stuff like that?
She's pretty smart. One of the things the teachers say is she rushes a lot. Like, they know that she knows the content, and if they were like verbally like go slower with her, she'll get a good grade. But when she just takes the test on her own, she'll get like a C because she rushes through it and misses a few things. But she's always been a little bit more advanced growing up, you know, like walking, talking, stuff like that. She's not in any kind of like special needs classes or anything.
Wow. She sounds like she's gonna be a fun kid as she gets older, you know.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, I definitely know a lot of people that have had like a little interesting childhoods, but once they get their stuff figured out and their chemicals kind of leveled out, things seem to chill out really well for them. Seems like you got a good investment into it and you're doing a good job on that.
Yeah, we do the best we can. You know, and being a parent of multiple kids too is a lot different than if you have one or two. I can tell you that. Like to be able to really show your undivided attention as a parent to every one of them is hard sometimes. You know?
Sure. I wouldn't even think I thought I've got one. Like the interesting part is, dude, there's so much of what you've explained that I've literally gone through the exact same thing. I've had full custody of my daughter since she was 1 year old. She's 15 now. I definitely have been blessed with the health aspect, but I've gone through it quite a bit, my man. So it was very interesting to hear you talk, like how much I've really understood and how much of that I've personally gone through. So much respects to what you've invested and what you put in.
Appreciate it.
It's always interesting to me, though, the times that people will tell me, like, good for you, you know, there's so many people that walk away, and, like, so many dads, like, there's nobody else. Yeah. Like, there's no, I wasn't left with a choice.
It's crazy to hear people say that, you know.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about your child, not like a possession or a hat, or a dog, or, you know, it's like, of course I would, but
100%.
I mean, you do see it more often these days, single fathers, more than in the past. But you know, 15 years ago, I didn't know anybody else that was a single father.
For sure.
You know, I knew a lot of guys that had kids that weren't with the mom. Saw them on the weekends or whenever they could, or so. You know, it was like, and it was always that. You know, I was a single guy. I always had these single guy friends that'd be like, hey, you want to go out or come over to a barbecue? Or I'd be like, well, it's a kid friendly.
Right.
You know, like,
yeah. Dude.
You know, because I got to bring my kids.
I remember that.
So I didn't have much of a social life, and it was almost like, at the time it sucked, you know, and I got depressed about it, but I look back on it now, it's like, really wasn't that big of a deal. You know, I did what I was supposed to do, and my kids are more important than having a little fun, so.
I'll tell you what, I made a lot of crazy choices before my kid was born, and I believe that because I had to take on so much is what kept me from doing all those other things. So if that's what it was, then cool, parenting worked out.
Yeah, being a parent, you start thinking about the consequences of what they're going to go through if you make a stupid choice versus what you have to go through, you know?
For sure.
But I'm pretty busy during the week with work. I go to the gym, you know, like, and on weekends when I can, I like to spend time with them, but I try to do it like on an individual, like, hey, Bryce, that's my 8-year-old. You want to go to the arcade today? You know,
that's what's up.
And then the other ones get jealous, of course, but it's hard to do it with all of them because you're not able to really individually have attention to each one of them.
Man, I wouldn't have thought of that.
And everything's expensive, so when you start multiplying it by 2, 3, 4, it's outrageous. Go mini golf, it costs you $150. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh. I think I would have to pay too to go dig some holes out in the backyard, buy some little putters, and let them go to town. We're gonna set up some milk cartons, some cardboard today. What is that? That's a dinosaur. You still got a good relationship with your folks?
Yeah, they live up in Oldsmar. I don't know if you ever heard of that. It's like right outside of Clearwater in Pinellas County.
And that's where you said your family kind of complains that they have to drive from, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even that far. It's just basically right over the bridge and then through St. Pete and you're there.
I was going to say, I just came from Tampa. I drove to Tampa this morning and came back. I think I drove past there.
But they're getting older, my parents, and so it's more me going to see them these days because they don't like to really drive and stay out late. And then I got 2 older sisters. And I don't see them that much. But
Just because you guys aren't all
just
that
because,
close.
well, no, we were close. Just me living down here and life happening and work. They both work full-time jobs. My one sister works in the medical field, so she's got a daughter that has kids, so she's a grandma, and she spends a lot of time with her kids. And I'm the youngest, and all my kids are the youngest as far as my parents' grandchildren, so my kids kind of got more spoiled, I guess, because like the other ones are grown up when they were babies. They're babies. I got nephews and nieces that are 31 to 26. I got kids of their own, They come visit me. I mean, I got a good relationship with them too. It's just not like because I live so far, daily see or even weekly see. Sometimes we'll go 3 weeks, a month before we get together, but we always try to get together.
You had a pretty good childhood.
Yeah, I like to think. I mean, I'm sure the other kids had better, but my parents were good. My mom never worked. My dad was always the worker. He was out of the house a lot. We were all, me and my sisters, closer to my mom than my dad because of that, I would think. But then once, my dad actually got in this really bad car accident while I was working when he was 51. He's 75 now. And because of that accident, he was claimed disabled to where he could never work again.
Oh, man.
So, and I was an adult at that point, 18, 19 years old. And so our relationship, me and my dad's relationship, got a lot stronger and closer at that point until now. Because he, didn't have to work. He wasn't stressed as much. I was an adult. We related on more stuff. And
I can say now that my daughter is 15, our conversations have evolved and changed a lot. Where when she was younger, she would drive me nuts all the time, and like now, it's like I could definitely see her being one of my best friends as she gets older. Once she gets past the part of talking back as much as she does.
Yeah.
She's definitely 15. In that argumentative stage where
15,
everything is
same way. He knows everything.
Yeah, the sky's not blue, Dad. It's like light blue with there's some gray clouds out there.
I said, and then he comes home with a report card with bad grades. I'm like, Mr. Know-It-All over here.
Yeah, I'm actually really easy with my kid on the grades too because I was so terrible with school. But I've got her at a performing arts school, so she's able to kind of concentrate on some of the extracurricular.
Yeah.
When she brings home any kind of grades that aren't great, how are these not great? You got to do taekwondo for one of your classes. You get to paint and shit. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a tough age. Teenage age period stuff. Just because they think they know it all and they're adults in their heads, and you're not an adult.
So tell me, if you could think of something off the top of your head, any kind of life-changing experience or any kind of monumental time in your life, anything that you've taken large losses on, or maybe taking a loss in life on, I'm kind of curious about something like that.
I guess about 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, I guess, I started my own landscape business and had it for about 2 years. Just got kind of sick of working for the man, you know what I mean? And
sure.
Had grown to the point where I had the skills and the talent and the confidence enough to try to just do it on my own. And I did it, took the leap and did it, and it was going real good for a long time. I was by myself, so it was a lot of work, and I was, away from home a lot. People think, I'll start my own business and they're going to have all this freedom, but I was working more than I was when I was punching the clock.
Right.
And, that got to me a little bit because I kind of got to the point where it was like I succeeded at my own business and I knew I could, and that's awesome. But I was like, I'm kind of ready to just go work for a company again and have more time with my family and stop chasing that dollar because I wasn't getting rich, you know what I mean? But I was making good money, but it was coming at a price. So I guess kind of the loss with that was I gave up my business. That was one loss, but just that lost time with my family for those 2 years kind of gave, it was more of like a mental exhaustion than it was physical with having a business, because I was trying to, you know, juggle the family and the business and make sure the customers are happy, make sure my family's happy. And with doing all that, I was losing precious time that you can't get back. You know, you only get older every day. You never get what's lost. So when I first decided to do it, I was kind of almost looked at myself as a failure. Like, oh, here I am, I own my own business. I'm going back to working for a company and making less money. And everybody I would talk to that I worked with would be like, man, are you crazy? You gave up a business to come work here, you know? And I'm like, you guys don't get it because you never owned one. You know what I mean? Like, you're saying that because you thought, like I thought it was going to be sunshine and rainbows, easy. And since I've made that decision 3 years ago, I've actually gotten a good job offer, and my career and the whole thing has kind of evolved to where I'm making more money now than I was making when I had my own business.
Amazing.
And physically working a lot less. So I'm not in the sun as much, and when I am, I always have long sleeves on anyway. Yeah, that's what. And when I got the original hand tattoos, the tattoo artist said, "Oh man, you're in the worst profession to be getting these. You know, you're out in the sun using your hands constantly in the dirt." And that's why I was a little shocked that the finger tattoos were a little bit not as faded as I thought they would be.
They're very punched in. There's definitely air in there, which is hilarious because those are the ones that you want off.
That's what I said too about the name on my arm. Like, not necessarily the tattoo that it is, but the quality I almost like the most out of all my tattoos. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm gonna cover it up, but maybe I'll cover it up with better quality.
Exactly. Just wanted to spice that top up for you. That 8 was a little crooked.
Yeah. Yeah, believe it or not, the guy that did that tattoo, so it was the whole one, the flames, the apple, all that, took him about 8 hours.
Jesus.
Like we were in a tattoo shop like this. It was a Sunday. There was no one coming and going, and he was kind of just taking his time. We kept taking a bunch of smoke breaks together, and his boss got pissed when he showed back up. You know, like, what the hell are you doing? What's taking you so long? He's like, I'm just taking my time. He don't mind. And like, you know, that whole joke, like, oh, so how long you been tattooing? And it's like, oh, you're my first, you know. Well, he said like 2 months, and I thought he was joking, and he's like, no, I'm being for real. So I was like, oh man, I wish you would have told me that prior to. It kind of got me nervous. I mean, he did a decent job, I guess, at the time.
That's something that should definitely be disclosed.
He like went too deep, I guess, and like the next day, I worked at the Olive Garden at that time, and you know, we wore long sleeve white collared dress shirts. So I was working all morning, and I had my sleeves down. And my wrist was real sore, you know, and it was kind of sorer than I was used to with any tattoo. But I thought, oh, maybe because it's on my wrist, whatever. And when I got home, you know, I'd take off my shirt, super swollen, and there was like a red line on this vein about to my elbow, which freaked me out. So of course I called the hospital and asked them. They said, oh, it sounds like you got ink poisoning in your vein. You need to come in and get antibiotics before it reaches your heart. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, if I would have worked a double that day, I might have died. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously I couldn't go back. I did go back to the tattoo place, but I couldn't do nothing because you signed those papers and all that stuff. But I believe he wound up getting fired.
I would hope so.
I don't think I was the only person that he messed up.
Yeah, I've been
like I said, I got
years. I've never personally seen that.
Like I said, I got nerve damage in my arm I had surgery right here on it. So if he was going deeper than he should have been, I really didn't feel it as if he was, So,
Right.
or I probably would have said something while I was doing it, like whoa.
That's wild. Yeah, I've definitely not seen that before. Yeah, this is gonna be nice and blue.
And my stepdaughter got her first tattoo not too long ago, about 4 months ago, and she got it on her side of her stomach, like a little memorial piece. And she said,
"It's tough stuff."
Yeah, she was like, "Oh man," she's like, "I didn't let them shade it in because I couldn't take the pain anymore." And it's like, I got one on my side, and she's a little girl, so I don't know if the pain threshold is different, but I was like, man, I just couldn't imagine ever saying, "Oh, I can't take it no more. You got to stop" on a tattoo. I just never experienced it like that. I'm sure there's spots, that I don't have a tattoo that.
So the style of what I just did on your wrist versus what you got on your fingers, if what you got on your fingers was done on your ribs, that would be fucking excruciating.
Yeah.
If I did the style of what I just did on your wrist, on your ribs, it would be variable. So depending on the style of artist and the style of what they're doing, it can definitely affect like how rough that piece really is.
I mean, but the nerve damage thing is pretty cool because like it literally feels itchy. It's like an itch under the skin you can't get to.
Yeah.
And it's been, ever since I've had the surgery in 2001.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's been a long time, but the doctor said as, the years go by, the nerves try to reconnect. He said, and you're gonna literally feel it, It's like an itch that you can't scratch.
That shit. It's a wild feeling.
And he also said that it's not 100% that I would ever get full feeling back. So he was right on that, because I didn't. I mean, I feel it. It's just you stick a pin or something in my tip of my thumb, I have no reaction.
Oh, shit. Well, at least I guess if you hit it with a hammer and nail type shit, you won't feel it.
Yeah, I was stupid. I was stupid and in college and got mad and punched a door that had glass on it like an idiot, and the glass came down and just went right through my arm. And
oh, so that's what caused the nerve damage. Oh.
I cut my muscle, my tendon, and my nerves all in half. Had to have surgery. Put it all back together. Couldn't use my arm for 6 months.
Those are the type of life lessons I learned, right?
And by the time I was able to start using it and go to rehab and all that, I couldn't even turn the doorknob. I'd been so weak. So I stopped punching things when I was mad. I learned I learned that. And the $20,000.
The wall always wins.
And the $20,000 bill that came along with it.
Lord.
Yeah, I guess like the plastic surgeon has to do the surgery because they're putting together the nerves and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
So that's a little bit pricier than just a regular old surgeon. And
it'd be funny if they had like different options. Would you like the option of it being like perfectly repaired, the top surgeon? Would you like more of like the veterinarian style where it's like more Walmart style pricing?
yeah, it's like I broke my collarbone in a motorcycle accident about 5 years ago. And the doctor said, literally it was like, wasn't completely shattered in half, but it was like 90%, so it wasn't poking through the skin yet, but there was a lump there. And he said, well, you don't necessarily have to get surgery. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, explain that to me. And he's like, well, you can let it heal like this, but you'll always have that lump. You probably won't have full use of rotation of your shoulder and this. And I was like, sounds like a horrible option. Like, let's just do the surgery and fix it. Like,
Right. But then they have to voice that in case there's any other risk, right?
yeah. Well, I probably also see if you can afford it before
I see.
let you know that it could be healed without it. I guess.
Right.
But if you don't have insurance, I didn't have insurance, but that was like $5,000. That was a lot better than $20,000 for my arm. I can tell you that.
I want to say just the ambulance bill and shit like that, it gets pretty pricey.
Yeah.
So it's pretty surprising they had surgery for that.
I mean, that was, well, I didn't. I walked in, so I didn't have to, like, the 20 grand I say about my arm, that was also included with the ambulance and all that. That was in my college dorms, so they had to do everything by protocol. I was like, I'll just drive up there, I don't have insurance, I don't want an ambulance. And the lady was like, yeah, we got to call in, we can't let you drive, you're losing a lot of blood. Like, it's literally like a mile up the road. Yeah, the doctor that did my shoulder, his name was Dr. Kardashian. And I, probably the millionth person to say, hey, any relation to the, and he was like, oh, I'm so sick of it.
This fucking guy. That's funny.
Definitely a lot different. You don't even look like a tattoo there where you haven't touched it yet.
Yeah, I can say that this
crazy.
area right here, it's having a little bit of a tougher time holding. So at some point in the future, it might not be a bad idea for us to zip a little bit more color on there. Mm-hmm. What I'm going to do is before you leave, I'm going to have you take a picture on your phone of the color blue that I use. That way you'll have it on your camera. That way if you ever come back or somebody else ever has to hit it, they'll know exactly what color blue is on there. I saw a football tattoo on your other arm. What was that one for?
The high school I went to, it was in Tarpon Springs in Pinellas County, East Lake High School, and they're the Eagles. And then I got a scholarship to a school in Kansas City, football scholarship, the Avila Eagles. So I was kind of like, oh wow, I like always in Little League I played for the Eagles.
Yeah.
So it was always Eagles. So I was 18 my senior year in high school. So technically I was an adult as far as being able to go get tattoos or whatever. So I thought it was an awesome idea to go get an eagle and put football underneath it. And everyone thinks like,
okay, God.
Like I literally took it off of like a Harley Davidson kind of tattoo with the flag. And he was like, I'll just minus all that out and we'll just put the eagle,
That's funny.
And everyone's always like, oh, you're an Eagles fan? I'm like, no. Wasn't thinking about that when I got it done.
Apparently neither was the tattoo guy.
And this is another one I hate. And if I could change that, I would.
The Panther?
Yeah.
The Panther's dope, actually. Yeah.
It was just like, it was one of the pick it off the wall ones. And I was kind of seeing it I like wanted it completely on my bicep, like hanging off. And
right.
It came out differently, and I was like, ah.
I think the Panther is timeless. It's always one of those pieces where back in the day, that was like the only thing they would ever do a cover up with. Oh, you want a cover up? You get a Black Panther. And like that's what the times remind me of, and it's so funny because it's progressed so much now where there's so many ideas for cover ups now versus before. Yeah, you got a dragon or you got a fucking panther.
Yeah, my first few tattoos were just pick them off the wall ones,
Yeah.
Like,
Have your kids talked about getting any?
well, my daughter, who's about to be 19, just got hers, and then my 17-year-old son has a tattoo on his forearm that his grandma signed for him.
Oh, wow. Grandma's thugged up.
Yeah, because he was like, I'm going to get a tattoo. He was up, with his grandma, and I'm going to get a tattoo to my wife. And she said, no, you're not. Yeah, I'm going to get a tattoo. And so I was
You said with his wife?
No, he said to my wife.
Gotcha. I was like, oh shit, that boy's getting married fast.
On the phone, he was like, I'm going to get a tattoo. And she was like, no, you're not, So she mentioned it to me, and I'm like, well, he's too young for that. What are you, crazy? Like, I don't think it's a good idea, he's still growing. And she's like, well, he's 17, he can't get one. And then he comes home with it. We're like, what the hell?
Shit.
He got like family on his
so you guys
inner forearm.
You're mad at him.
He actually wants to get another one. He was just talking about it the other day. He wants to get the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, but with angels instead of monkeys.
You know what's funny is back in the day, the I Love Mom tattoo was that exact tattoo.
I got mom.
Yeah, people would get the I Love Mom tattoo just so mom wouldn't get too angry.
Exactly.
Blood looking weird out there.
I was getting this one, and I said, hey, how much would it be to just get 3 letters on my chest? And the guy was like, it wasn't much more. So I got it. And this one I was in Kansas City. And then I came home like a few months later for like Christmas break. And said, I can get another tattoo. And I was like, I actually got 2. And I pulled my shirt down and she was like, oh, I can't be mad now.
Mama taught me well. Punching the red in and good.
How long have you been tattooing?
I've been tattooing for 2 decades now. And started tattooing in 2002. It's funny too, because back in high school, all my friends would try to ask me if I would tattoo them. I was constantly drawing on myself, and I was like taking home art contests and stuff. I was always like, no, that shit's gross. I don't want you guys bleeding all over me. Woo, woo, woo.
And then at the 20-year reunion.
Yeah. Dude, I've got one of my homies flying in from California next week. It's really cool how many of my people have flown here to get tattooed.
Are you from California?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really too often meet people that are from Florida.
Yeah.
But when you met them because they'll tell you 50 times. And they'll talk to you like they're above everything else, and Cracker Barrel is just part of their family line. And I respect it, I could appreciate it. But that shit don't make you any better than me.
What part of California are you from?
I did a lot of moving around. My big part of my family's in the San Joaquin Valley by the desert area. I've got a lot of family in Ventura and LA. Some of them are over by San Francisco now. So there's some of them are in the San Diego. Anytime I go back to California, it's the hardest part is trying to figure out where I want to go. The biggest thing about being in Cali, though, is I never really felt as out of place as I do here. I still feel like I stick out so much, whereas in California I just didn't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other Asian people that look like me, and I don't know, it's just different growing up. Around here now, I got to go to the Chinese restaurants and the nail salons. I feel like I could find more of me. And I'm really happy to hear about how you recovered from the business thing, dude, because it's interesting. I've talked about this a lot with tattoo artists, that there's a lot of artists that want to open up their own shop. And as much as I wanted to open up my own shop, if I could have done it different, I don't know if I necessarily would have, because I likely would have just thrown everything I had into somebody else's situation, built up a nice opportunity for myself, and kept plugging at that, because the reality of it is I wouldn't have the stresses and the headaches that I do now.
Yep.
And like, this shop is a lot smaller than my other one. It's a lot more humble, a little bit more to the point. And I wanted it like this because I just wanted to feel like I was kind of getting back to like business not just being so tough. Like, I wanted it to be just very simple and me be able to do what I love to do and keep everything where it was a lot more feasible. So the business side wasn't so stressful and it wasn't so taxing, I guess.
Yeah, everybody that says they want their own business, they don't know the business side of it, so they don't see the stress. And
my first few years of business was tough. I always felt like I was like fucking counting dollars, making sure I was fucking doing it right, because I was constantly reinvesting.
Yeah.
So how did you meet your current wife?
We actually met on Facebook.
That's
people you may know. Little thing popped up, you know, and
who swiped first?
Me.
Did it lead with a dick pic or not?
No. You know, we talked for about probably 3-4 days before we even met. And
so you're invested in that one. She must be pretty.
Yeah, she's Italian. I'm Italian. That was different. I always dated girls that weren't, and not that it's a big deal, but we just have more of like, you know, her mom's actually from Italy, so it's like that. We have more of a connection based off of that, you know, and then I like the fact that she was, you know, a single mom. I was a single dad, and it showed me that she was a good mom, and that was my biggest thing. Like, if I was going to be in any kind of other relationship, that girl had to be a good mother, had to love kids, because I had them, and my kids came first, and they were a package deal, you know what I mean?
Without a doubt.
So that was definitely a positive of what turned me from just wanting to, like, use chicks to being in a relationship kind of deal, you know? Like, she was different than the rest, and I wanted to invest some time in getting to know her, and we just hit it off, and pretty much haven't been separated since.
Beautiful, my man. Well, I think we are about there, dude.
It's crazy. That's what it looked like when I first got it. It's so crazy. Even the hangs are like plastic, huh? I remember them being
they
real
used to be
thick.
these long bars.
Yeah, metal. With...
Yeah, everything's changed a little bit. The machines being wireless has definitely been the biggest game changer out of everything, though. Just because like, it allows all freedom. We got people jumping out of planes, fucking doing tattoos and shit now. It's funny.
Definitely imagine that. So you currently have a YouTube channel now, or you're trying to start one?
I've had a few, but this is going to be the newest venture because I've like really decided like what I want it to be about, and it's not going to be about the tattoo shops themselves per se. It's going to be more about my travel through therapy and through just talking and transparency. And I think that like I was telling you earlier, I believe that the reality of it is we don't have an understanding of other people's struggles enough to understand empathy to the way that we could. If we understood empathy the way that we could, we would look at other people and we wouldn't see a crazy person. We would see somebody struggling. We wouldn't see somebody like broken. We would see somebody sad and hurt. And the reality of how we could reach out to them and help them is different. Pure conversation, pure communication. The typical level is I've got the most of my clientele base are veterans. And the number one thing that I know with a lot of my veterans is at some point during the year, they're going to start struggling. There's going to be a time where they're going to have it really tough. And they've got a support system out there. They've got other veteran friends that know exactly what they go through. Yet not fucking one of them will talk to each other about it. They won't reach out to each other about it. They won't talk. They won't communicate. They just struggle in silence. And that's the stuff right there that I want to see different.
It's my watch.
You did say phone, not watch.
Totally forgot about it.
But yeah, so that was the part of it, man. And man, is like over the COVID time, I lost a few friends. I've had a decent amount of people take their lives, and I've just lost too many people to the point where I don't believe that people understand what other people think of them or what people like about them or whatever. Is because people just have the hardest time conversating, communicating. And as interesting as it was, we were at lunch the other day. Like I told you, I gave my artist the mental health day off. And we're sitting there and we're eating. And there was this guy that was just like super overpowering, taking over the whole conversation, just like being like, just, it was obnoxious to listen to. It just really was. Like we both of us were having a really hard time with it. But it was like, man, even as I was listening to the guy, I was sitting there telling myself, man, I kind of want to hear his story to find out what he's compensating for, or why he has to be so shiny, why he has to be so above everybody else that he's talking to. And so I'm really looking forward to this because I do believe that I'm going to grow more and more, and I'm going to understand people more and more, and I'm going to see them more for what's happening versus seeing whatever the content is of what they're saying at the moment, I guess. And I definitely appreciated you sharing with me about your daughter and your work and stuff, man, because the reality of it is there are a lot of people that have had to open up their businesses and at some point figure out that that wasn't the best situation for them. And the reality of it is business comes with sacrifice. And a lot of times the people that sacrifice are the people that you love and the people that you care about. And any person that is strong enough family, man, at some point that is going to become an issue. So I have nothing but respect for the fact that you're able to identify that, you were able to address it, and you were able to problem solve it. The fact that you turned it into such a win is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it was almost like I was unconsciously at one point I was looking at it as like me being a business owner succeeding at it was defining me. Like that's what I was, and that's not who I am really, you know. I am a family guy and I do like to be home. And
I'll tell you what, if business was all about paperwork, I would fucking have quit years ago. I cannot stand the paperwork aspect of business. Yeah, you said your 15-year-old's into the YouTube and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, anything computer, gaming. You know, and he goes to Palmetto High School. He takes film class. He's into all that stuff, but it also consumes his life a little bit too much too. Sometimes to where we have to like, hey, get off the computer, come join us for dinner tonight. It'd be awesome, you know. Got to remind him to like take a shower and brush his teeth.
I think that's 15 years old thing.
He just sits on it, you know, he's got a microphone just like that, you know, with the spit guard that's hooked to his desk and two screens. And
so does he do like the gaming style stuff?
Yeah, and he streams his gaming too. And you know, he talked my mom into buying him like this $1,800 computer. And they do well with it.
Sounds like a slick 15-year-old. Yeah, my daughter had always wanted to do more vlogging, and now that I've talked about doing more, like she said, came up with like no ideas and hasn't even really tried to want to do any, which has been really interesting. So I'm kind of curious to see if she's going to get more into it as the time passes. I've got a lot of content for our man to be editing, though. I was like going through all my videos over the years, and like me and her have done so many things together that it's like, man, we're gonna have a lot of video content to put out for her channel, and then my channel is just gonna be more of the conversation stuff.
And the editing, that's the hard part, you know.
Right.
The time consuming. And it's easy to hit the record button and do whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I bought all the editing stuff, and I've been doing some editing this week, and I can definitely say I'm grateful for my man Ryan to be able to take care of that, because shit is not. I like making little mini reels and little mini things where it's a little bit more simplistic. The having to like figure out the layering and adding, dubbing, and all that other shit is not my jam.
Crazy what they can do these days, though.
Yeah.
You know, like my kids got Snapchat and TikTok and all that stuff. I don't have any of that stuff. I have Facebook. That's about it. So my wife downloaded Snapchat because she wanted to, you know, communicate with them and kind of be up to the time. And they got this little filter where they'll make a frozen picture start singing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's the craziest thing in the world. Like, how'd that even happen? You know what I mean? But I was like, do it with someone with two people in the picture. See if it switches to, you know, and it did. I was amazed.
No, some of the filters they came out with are they're extreme. Like, wow, it's pretty impressive. There's one I've seen going viral right now where it shows older people, but as they looked as a teen. And so as you move your face, you look young. And dude, it's emotional. You see people and they're looking at themselves and they're finally seeing themselves as what they would look like back then. And it's raw emotions that people are experiencing.
Even the one where it makes you look older, crazy, because it's like, man, like when I did it, I looked like my dad does now. You know? And I was like, whoa, that's nuts. And then like we did it with my little 5-year-old daughter, and she kind of looked like my mom.
I should.
And she got mad when we did it, though.
I'm
not old. I don't look like grandma. Look at me.
Dude, she's old.
Yeah. But I mean, I remember when I was younger, I thought 40 was old. You know, I'm 41 now. I'll be 42 in June. And when I was young, when I was like a teenager, I was like, man, 40's old. That was old to me. Now it's like, I ain't that old. You know what I mean?
What happens is somebody will tell me they're 55, and I'll look at them, and I don't see the 55. And then I'll think about my age. I'm like, oh, it's not that much older. And that's when it really hits me. It's like, well, you're not 55. You are 55.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, well, they're way older. My wife would be like, yeah, probably like early 50s. And I'm thinking like, damn, not way older, yeah. It was when I was, but it's also when you think like 30 years ago, I always think 1970.
That's,
you know, like
30
years ago is 90s, you know, like.
That's what somebody said. The kids like asked when the grandparent was born or something, or the parent. They're like in 1980 something, and they're like, "Oh, so you were born in the late 1900s?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you little fuck."
No, I was like, I tell my kid, you know, I grew up. I didn't have my first cell phone until I was 20 years old. It's like my 5-year-old has a cell phone.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like my wife constantly, like, she'll call. She's at work. She's a bartender at Applebee's, so you know she gets pretty busy at night, and my daughter will just blow her up because she wants to tell her she wants a snack or something. Even though I'm in the other room, you know, it's like, so she'll call me up all mad,
like, why are you taking care of her?
Like, Francesca's blowing my phone up, and I'm like, well, hey, you wanted to get an active phone for the 5-year-old. I was cool with the hotspot and the blue, you know, Wi-Fi.
Amazing.
I said, just block her number while you're at work. I can't do that. It's my daughter. I'm like, she don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. My daughter tried to turn my location on my phone, and then one day I didn't even remember that she did that. I was like at a girl's house, and she asked me where I was. I'm like, why? She was like, you're somewhere new. I'm like, man, how did you turn this shit off? Man, with the CPS stuff, I remember when CPS called on me because it was a similar circumstance where it wasn't my doing, and I had to deal with them. That was probably one of the scariest fucking times I've ever had in my life. Man.
Oh, it's frightening because they really do have the power,
Yeah.
even if they're wrong, you know.
Right. Yeah, I remember I was like upset because at the time I had to get my daughter's room was on this very small side. So I remember the lady, she came in and she was like, "This is what you're worried about?" Because I had it painted pink on the bottom, like gray on the top, real girly. She was like, "This is beautiful." She's like, "I need you to understand that we go to places where people have a drawer as the kid's bed, where there's nothing for them really there. So understand that there is a high level of difference between your standard and what we're looking at." And I was like, okay, because I was terrified. I'm like, I'm gonna have to kill this lady. You can take my kid. I'm gonna have to chop her feet off. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, like when I was going through my divorce, you know, my ex-wife, like at the time, was living in a hotel, you know, like,
man.
So I'm over here like pleading with the judge, like, she lives in a hotel, there's no place for a kid,
right.
And the judge is like, unfortunately, it's a roof over her head, and that's all that matters.
No way.
And I was like, man, like, she's like, yeah, she's like, your apartment, your house, her hotel, whatever, as long as there's a roof over and a bed for her child to sleep in. And I'm like,
fuck.
That's just crazy,
That
you know,
crazy.
But. You know, I guess they deal with so many kids and so many families
That they just have to deal with.
That as long as the kid's safe, then they look at it as like, you know.
I gotta shave around it so the film will stick.
Yeah, I was playing poker the other night in Derby in St. Pete, and this guy, older guy too, probably like late 50s, came in with this huge like angel wing tattoo on his arm, and he said it was a cover-up of a cover-up of a cover-up.
Shit.
I was like, "Jeez, Louise."
Angel wings, that's what tends to be. They either turn into a space scene.
Well, I mean, it was from his elbow to the top of his shoulder,
right.
Like his whole arm. So like he was getting to the point where he has no other. If he wants to cover it up again, it's going to be just blacked out. You know what I mean? Like,
you want to grab this on the thing? Okay.
That was the only tattoo he had too. It's crazy. He's like, I've had 5 tattoos, but all in the same spot.